The Foxborough General Store opened for business in 1938. 56 years, 8 children, 28 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren later, co-owners Dave and Dorothy Ostoski have decided to call it quits.
Well, I'm going to miss them. I really will. Because I enjoy people and talking with people. That was my life.
But lives change as auctioneers sold the remaining merchandise and equipment outside. 81-year-old Dave and 78-year-old Dorothy shared memories of the beginning inside.
I was told, Dave, are you going to take over the store? I hear you're going to buy it. I said, yeah. Oh, he says, you ain't going to make it there. He says, I give you 30 days and you're done. That pushed me harder than ever to run a store, because I says, I got a goal to meet now, and I'm going to meet it.
Through thick and thin, Dave and Dorothy believe they made their goal.
I think the high point is the kids have been here, and they've all turned out good. We've had no problems. And I think maybe because they had a home life to go with it, it helped.
They both plan to head to Arizona soon and have already made some decisions concerning the possibility of owning a general store in the southwestern U.S.
No way. No, I'm going to go in the other people's stores.
Even though the store was officially closed October 9th, the road through Foxborough after today will seem just a little bit lonely, knowing that a person can't stop at Dave's place for groceries and good old-fashioned hospitality. In Foxborough, John Jetta, News 6.
Public Utilities and Energy Committee, when the governor's first appointees started, people who I think are not sensitive to the... He's ignored concerns of working people, concerns of farmers, concerns of senior citizens, the people who government ought to be working for. I believe this latest case, his Public Utilities Commission, shows the same lack of sensitivity to the public.
It's 1:45 at a Duluth school. It's a chaotic time. Kids are hungry. A significant number haven't had breakfast. That means they haven't eaten for up to 17 hours. But school officials are on a deadline. They've got hundreds of kids to feed in a short amount of time. So what do? They rush the kids along. What happens to the children? They don't eat much, and that's a problem.
A healthy and well-fed student coming to school is one that's ready to learn.
Nutritionists have carefully chosen healthy food for these students, but unfortunately, many will not get the time to eat it. Our camera shows a group coming in to eat at 12:45. Lunch supervisors hover over kids, encouraging them to move along, sometimes reminding them the faster they eat, the longer they'll have on the playground. In some cases, kids are even encouraged to wear their jackets so they can get outside faster. After a short time, kids are told to either move to the, quote, slow table or leave the lunchroom. Many kids show a reluctance to quit eating, but the lure of the playground and perhaps the stigma of the slow table wins out. Our camera shows just 7 minutes have elapsed from the time the kids came in to the time they leave.
They rush through their meals. They oftentimes do not take time to try new foods. And I think maybe then there's probably much more wasting of food.
Our cameras show that to be true. Every day, many pounds of good food is thrown away as kids dump rather than dawdle.
They're just rushed so much, and that I just know that they're not eating the things that they should be eating at school.
Parents have to depend on schools to make sure kids eat because the days of going home for lunch are long gone.
Our expectation is that educators of children understand the importance that food and something to eat in the morning and at lunchtime, how vitally important that is to a child's day.
A 1994 Tufts University study shows the strongest link yet between ability to learn and nutrition. It says undernutrition impacts the behavior of children, their school performance, and their overall cognitive development. The immediate loser when a student doesn't eat right is the child. But in the long run, a whole community suffers when a child grows up to be an adult who doesn't contribute to his full potential. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6. "7,600 children eat lunch in the Duluth School District, but only 800 kids get breakfast. There are a couple of reasons for that. None of the high schools and only one of the 5 middle schools offers breakfast, and 4 elementary schools have chosen not to provide what experts call the most important meal of the day.
I don't see it personally as a problem, and it hasn't been brought to my attention. But like I say, we won't let kids go hungry.
Many principals believe kids eat breakfast at home, but district officials say research indicates a significant number are not eating before coming to school, and because of that, Duluth school officials mandated breakfast district-wide. But principals at the various schools have the last say on whether it will be offered.
At a district level, we would certainly want that to occur. But again, we're site-based decisions, and it's up to that site to want to do it.
A group has recently formed to push for a change in attitude in Duluth schools regarding meals. They say the breakfast program in Duluth is aimed at children from poorer families, but they say it's not a matter of money, it's a matter of time, and it's not just underprivileged children going hungry.
Families are not, maybe parents aren't home, there's that rush in the morning with everyone, that kids aren't eating breakfast.
Group members say there's a certain stigma to eating breakfast at school. Many perceive it as a meal for poor children, and even when it's offered, choose not to take advantage.
And we need to somehow turn that peer decision-making that it is not cool to have breakfast, or that you're always dieting to stay thin, or that you only have breakfast if you're poor in the school. We need to turn that around.
But many principals see breakfast as a logistical problem. They don't want breakfast time to take away from class time. Many buses arrive just minutes before classes begin. But the nutrition group feels with what's known about the relationship between good eating and good learning, schools need to find a way around these problems.
We're allowing logistical problems to be more important than the nutritional needs of a child.
Assistant Duluth School Superintendent Norm Chafee agrees.
Whether you could take 5 minutes and make sure that there was a breakfast that first hour of the school or whatever, I just think that, you know, we can make all excuses in the world, but if we wanted to do it, we could do it.
Despite strong support from high-up administrators, members of the Nutrition Committee say they've had no success in changing attitudes about meals at Duluth schools. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6. Lincoln Park Elementary is the only school in Duluth to offer breakfast as part of the school curriculum. Every kindergartner is encouraged to eat breakfast as a healthy start to their day, and teachers have seen a remarkable difference.
It has made a big difference in the children. They are able to concentrate much easier. They seem to be much happier and much more contented now when they come into the classrooms after they have their breakfast.
After seeing what a difference breakfast made to her students, Isabel Kresge wrote a letter to school officials advocating the program be tried district-wide. Her idea hasn't been adopted outside Lincoln Park, but a group of parents and nutritionists known as the Duluth Nutrition Committee is pushing for the plan. They say it's time the district realizes that hungry children are not good learners.
They can't be doing as well as they should be, and when that is happening, all of us are losers in that, and I think that people need to really be aware of that in our community.
High-ranking district officials agree, but in the Duluth district, school principals make their own decisions regarding the administration of meals. In several schools, children are hurried through lunch and breakfast in an effort to get meals over with as quickly as possible. Many principals fear a greater emphasis on meals would take time away from classroom study, but others are quick to point to the solid connection between nutrition and learning, saying if our goal is better education, then schools must take more responsibility for nutrition.
The whole argument is, are we the social fiber of our communities, the schools? And I think we have to step up to the line and say yes.
Norm Chafee says schools are the logical choice for this role because kids are a captive audience during their learning hours. But if schools did assume the front line in the battle for childhood nutrition, who would pay? Chafee says the federal government should take the lead.
My view is the United States should feed their children. And there should not be the issue of who can pay and who can't pay.
Senator Paul Wellstone disagrees.
We can say that adequate nutrition is critical to learning, but we also can say that there are limits to the budgets.
The overwhelming evidence shows a child receiving proper nutrition learns better and goes farther in school. If that's the goal, then members of the Duluth Nutrition Committee say the time is now to change the way we think about and administer school meal programs. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
On our dates, it's been the late 1970s, just about the time that I graduated from there, that we have had new band uniforms. For Maroon and Gold Day against Central, we were unable to put uniforms on our band.
Last month, employees who work in this shopping complex started smelling a strange odor coming through the steam vents. The MPCA eventually identified the odor as a gasoline leak. Right now, investigators are trying to find out how far this problem spreads and where the gasoline is coming from.
We look at everything. We have found elsewhere where very old tanks and lines have leaked, and the material was just left in the ground when they closed down. And they can go back quite a ways, 20 or more years. And that's one of the problems. If we don't have a clear-cut source, we have to consider everything.
The cleanup that did occur at the site, which I was a witness to, was transported out of state.
go.
Underclass of citizens.
They feel that there are two classes. There are the people who run the place, and then there are the blind people.
Sandy Wilmot is a blind person who worked at the Lighthouse for the Blind for 17 years as a liaison between blind workers and the administration. 2 years ago, that position was eliminated and Sandy was fired. She and a significant number of people who have worked at the Lighthouse over the years say they have been mistreated and discriminated against by the organization.
People feel intimidated.
When Sandy was laid off, Lighthouse managers told her it was a financial decision. But Sandy feels it was because she was outspoken, wanting fair treatment for the blind.
I always spoke out when they would give raises to everyone in the whole agency except for the people in the workshop.
Other former blind Lighthouse employees say the facility was run like a private club and blind workers weren't considered members.
If you weren't part of their way of doing things, you were out the door. I was there 10.5 years and went out the door.
Nick Thule has been appointed acting director of the Lighthouse after spending 11 years on the board. He says he doesn't believe what the blind people are charging and says he's never even heard of 17-year veteran employee Sandy Wilmot.
I've been an active board member for 11 years. And if these things were all true, I think I would have been aware of it. If she was an employee that was mistreated, I think as an active board member I would have known about it. I've never heard anything about it.
But
it did make me feel subhuman, or, you know, like I wasn't as good as a sighted individual. They were good at making the blind feel that way.
the director of communications at the Lighthouse admits there have been problems between management and workers for some time. But she says management is now moving to correct the situation, beginning by removing the longtime director.
There have perhaps been some concerns, but that they really feel like things are moving forward, that there are some positive steps being taken, and that they are, in fact, this is a step to being heard.
But some in the blind community question whether the problem will be solved. Shortly after Nick Thule took over as acting director, the media was invited to a reception and news conference at the Lighthouse. We spent nearly 2 hours at the facility and met many of the administrators. During that time, I was not introduced to one blind person. We did see blind workers on the production line, but we weren't introduced, nor given any opportunity to meet or talk with any of those blind employees. Many members of the blind community say this sends a clear signal that is exactly opposite to the Lighthouse mission.
That tells the public that blind people are to be kept behind closed doors. And we only look at the blind people as to how we can help them, not how they can help themselves also.
At the Duluth Lighthouse for the Blind, Barbara Riles, News 6.
We just met with the board, and they have refused to meet our demands. So shall we leave?
In March of 1988, students of Gallaudet University for the Deaf in Washington, D.C. fought for and won the right to have a hearing-impaired president. Like at Gallaudet, Duluth blind community would like to see a blind person in a high-profile position like director of the Lighthouse for the Blind. The Lighthouse acting director has different ideas.
We are right now writing up job description and intend to advertise for
someone at the receptionist desk, somebody at, if you call it that, the switchboard, so that the first person that you would see when they come to this agency would be a blind person.
The blind community calls that tokenism. They say the lighthouse management is completely missing the point.
We would, if we had our way, see that the director himself or herself would be a blind or partially sighted person. Because who knows better how to work with other blind people than blind people themselves?
But it helps morale because you sit there and think, well, they're blind, they can do it, I can do it.
The Lighthouse for the Blind produces toilet paper and industrial cloths. It must ensure that 75% of its direct workforce on the production line is blind to win lucrative government contracts. While the Lighthouse meets that requirement, in areas where there are no regulations, such as in supervisory or administrative positions, there are only 2 blind employees. In fact, fewer than half the Lighthouse employees are blind. But when you ask Lighthouse officials about that, you get carefully crafted answers like this one.
We will be increasing the number of blind people. As I mentioned before, we are actively recruiting blind workers.
The Lighthouse Public Relations machine is organized by the team of Nick Thule and Nancy Roche. They are father and daughter, although they claim neither had anything to do with hiring the other. Thule replaced longtime director Mike Conlon, who is still on the payroll, but doesn't come to work at the plant. Within days of my first contact, Roche sent me this letter, which suggests all problems were solved when Mike Conlon was asked to step down. At the same time, Roche was holding company-wide meetings in which employees were told to ignore the News 6 investigation. They even went so far as to talk to competing TV stations, apparently hoping to derail our investigation. Of course, the Thule-Roche team gave extensive interviews, but no angry blind people were included. The blind community feels Thule and Roche are deliberately holding back blind workers from promotion, because if they reach supervisory level, blind workers can't be counted in the Lighthouse federally required 75% quota. When asked, the Lighthouse again has a politically correct answer.
Any invisible barriers that there may have been between, whether it be rehabilitation or administration or production, we're trying to pull those invisible barriers apart.
Lighthouse officials continue to say blind people are their main concern. But sometimes actions speak louder than words. The blind community wants a blind director. The Lighthouse is offering a receptionist. Blind people want jobs. Over half the Lighthouse workforce is sighted. And blind workers want promotions. The Lighthouse quotas hold them back. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Finally, on Monday, they were able to start making snow. While most of us have been enjoying November's heat wave, Carl Kapuscinski has not. He's in his first year as director of Spirit Mountain, and although Mother Nature is not cooperating, he remains upbeat.
We've got enough down. We still hope to open on Thursday for the season. We've been getting the general facility ready, some painting, some upgrading. It's been a lot of fun. We're glad the weather's changed.
It takes about 35 hours of decent snowmaking to cover one trail enough to open. In order for snow to be made, the temperature has to be less than 20 degrees. And every second the thermometer has dipped low enough, they have been making snow. Meanwhile, inside, preparations for the season are moving ahead as well. The shelves are stocked in the ski shop. Upstairs, new employees are watching training films to prepare for tomorrow's opening day. And downstairs, Jennifer Leschke is putting the final touches on the kinder school.
We're ready for the kids to come in here. We got all toys galore for them to play with.
But will their parents have snow to play in? Normally, Spirit Mountain would have been open for weeks by now. Last year, a Thanksgiving weekend storm brought 6 inches of snow and large crowds. Because of strong season pass sales, the late start will not hurt the hill financially yet. That all changes, however, if they don't open this weekend. Besides an expected holiday crowd of skiers, the Snowcross Snowmobile Championships are scheduled to run Friday through Sunday. With no major snow expected from Mother Nature, an extended warm-up of over 20 degrees could prove very costly for Spirit Mountain. In Duluth, Ted Rowlands, News 6.
and the minister will do a regular, normal service. We'll do a few songs. Your pilgrims didn't used to sing, but we've done some modern things.
We do use the organ, which they didn't use, but we have, and we don't have the long prayer as they did, but we try to continue with the pilgrim spirit.
The building is gone, but the church is alive. A sign put up by Dolores Starseth tells parishioners that even a fire can't destroy their congregation.
We are the church. The building, it is past and gone.
As they sing songs of praise and hope, members of the First Covenant Church mourn the loss of a building that was dear to them. Pastor Steve Starseth tells his congregation it's okay to cry because many beautiful moments were shared in that building.
But it's all replaceable. As far as we know, there was no one hurt, no lives of possessions, a lot of things that meant an awful lot to a lot of us, and we'll carry them in our memories forever.
In Superior, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
That I cannot speak.
The Northland awoke to the sound of window scrapers this morning as the winter finally decided to get underway. Morning commuters trying to get an early start.
Half hour early.
Yep.
So hopefully the parking lots are plowed, so I have a place to park.
And people are getting used to shoveling again.
So it's about time, I guess. We had it coming.
You bet.
So finally came. Yeah, so winter's here to stay. No more raking leaves or mowing lawns.
The high winds and heavy snow snarled traffic last night and caused multiple power outages around the area. Trees knocked down power lines, some of which were down for several hours last night.
The Minnesota Power crews did some very dangerous work last night under those conditions. Really, it was a high wind hammering this whole Lake Superior North Shore area, everywhere from, say, Silver Bay on down to Superior, Wisconsin.
And the bad weather forced jets to reroute from Minneapolis to Duluth, leaving hundreds of passengers stranded overnight.
We sat on the runway for a while, and everyone tried to make phone calls on the air phone, but that didn't work too well. Then we got at, what time did we get into the airport? About 5 o'clock? Just waiting more lines. Then we waited more lines, and then they said, well, go to the hotel, and so it's been one line after another.
But we sat in the plane for 3 hours out on the runway, and then they let us off, and then, I mean, this place was just packed with people.
I called this morning to get out here at 9 o'clock, but obviously the plane is late, they're late, and there's another line upstairs, but you have to come in this line first.
Although road conditions are improving across much of the Northland, flurries continue to fall intermittently in different places, and the Highway Patrol reminds everyone to continue to drive very cautiously.
You need to reduce your speed under conditions like this. You also have to make sure you drive with the headlights so people can see you coming and you can see others. You have to increase your following distance 3 to 10 times normal under ice and snow conditions like we have this morning.
Road conditions are expected to get back to normal by Wednesday, but in the meantime, winter is here to stay. In Duluth, Derek Hines, News 6.
We've got a mess down there. We're planning to address it within the next week, assess the conditions, make some plans for short-term and long-term stabilization of that shoreline.
Not be operated out of a political office. It's my belief that his veto is in retaliation towards our effort to separate the personnel director from the mayor's office and to take that power, so to speak, out of that office.
Yeah, it does, because I get up here and work at it, and it kind of gives me a good feeling. It's something that I can do for my boy.
It was a year ago tonight that Nabi Valeri learned his son's life ended, along with 17 others, in a plane crash just a mile short of the Hibbing Airport's runway. It was also the day he decided it would be his mission to build something to remember William Valeri forever. Months after the crash, he would spend days at the site, putting what energy he had left into making room for a memorial wall that would accompany the cross that now stands where Flight 5719 struck a mountain of rock, killing all on board.
When I was working up here, the thing that surprised me was the number of people that came up here just to be here and just to, and they weren't just curiosity seekers. There were people that had either relatives, and they were from out of state. They had relatives or were people that they knew, or they had some connection in some way with the people that were in the plane.
In the year that has passed, what was once a source of pain for families of the victims of Flight 5719 is now a place to find comfort and remember those lives so tragically taken here. A year later, some still find it too difficult to return to the site. For those families, they say the only way they've been able to move forward with each passing day is to share their sorrow with other families.
I felt a real bonding with the other families through our support group. That's an excellent group. I wish that we could, I hope that we will continue to have it and meet more, just to say, how are you doing and how are things going?
Along with families, an entire community was shocked by a disaster that stripped them of friends and co-workers. Rescue crews on the Iron Range are still coping with the horror. Most have been counseled by a critical stress debriefing team, but say they'll be affected for the rest of their lives.
Well, in a community this size, that's eventually going to happen, whether it's one of your relatives or one of your friends or some acquaintance that you know. It's always with you, and it's one of the hazards of our occupation, I guess. It's something that you could never just cast off, which is good, I think.
While the Iron Range community is still coming to terms with the deaths of their loved ones, over the course of this year, a certain strength has taken over their grief. They say that strength has pulled something positive out of a terrible loss.
The community of Hibbing, at the point of the air crash, I think the community of Hibbing should be proud, because they really wrapped the families of the aircraft crash victims in a little envelope and protected them as best they could and cared for them. And I think that is really something that this community can be proud of.
summertime, you can see it's obviously a little crazy.
My phrase that, I'm a lover of music and of Ludwig Beethoven. And I think of this as my Symphony No. 9, because I love his Symphony No. 9. And so I feel very good about it. In fact, I spend a lot of time now just kind of watching people enjoy this. It's really important that I'm able to see how they enjoy it, because then on future projects, I'm going to know a little bit more about how to design spaces that people really appreciate.
Is that more pleasing for you to get that enjoyment more so than...
What ironically was a gift from the state of Minnesota may turn out to be a burden to Duluth taxpayers. We all know it as the Lake Walk, the highly popular, very scenic path that runs for miles along Lake Superior. As it approaches its 10th birthday, city officials worry that it may not be here to celebrate number 20.
At this time, we're looking at focusing our attention on some of the long-term repair possibilities as well as some immediate repair needs. Those immediate repair needs seem to have surfaced along the length of the Lake Walk from Leif Erikson Park down to Lake Place.
Officials fear that a feasible solution will take years to implement and become quite expensive. Yet extensive research must be done to determine where the problem lies and what methods of correction can be taken to solve it, because the cost is the responsibility of Duluth taxpayers.
Though, that if we looked at a repair approach, we may be looking at several $1,000s a year. A total reconstruction of the revetment from Lake Place to the Ship Canal may run into the millions of dollars.
But there is still hope. Some involved think the answer to stopping Lake Walk decay lies in fixing the problem of ground settling. Instead of waves eroding shoreline, weathering may be causing material underneath the path to condense and soften.
We're working now with a geotechnical engineer to evaluate the stability of the material just beneath the path itself and look at stabilizing that shallow material as a means of building in more stability to the path itself.
If this turns out to be the primary problem, fixing it will be easy, especially when compared to time-consuming and expensive alternatives such as break walls.
We have a long evaluation process to undergo yet. We'll be going through a monitoring process over the next few years, gathering more data and attempting to predict better than we can at this particular point in time what different storms will do to this shoreline protection and the best, most cost-effective ways we can keep this open to the public.
In Duluth, John Jetta, News 6.
Lunchtime is still hectic and noisy, but at Woodland School in Duluth, the amount of time children are being given to eat has more than doubled.
Based upon your report, we took a look at what we were doing and made some adjustments.
Following our investigation, Woodland's principal asked lunch servers and supervisors to analyze their program. Like many of the schools in Duluth, they found that students were getting an average of only 6 minutes to eat. They then asked the kids how they felt about the situation.
To be quiet and ask, in a couple, 3 days in a row, how many people are not having enough time to finish their lunch? And there were a number of hands went up, not the majority, but certainly a number of hands. So we reassessed the situation at that point.
Based on those findings, they adjusted schedules, added an extra serving line, and are now giving kids an average of 20 minutes to eat lunch.
I think it's easier so that you get to finish your meals instead of having to rush.
finish my lunch. Instead, when they want us to go outside, you just throw it away and then go out and play.
Staffers say they've discovered the longer lunchtime has resulted in much less food being thrown away.
The children we talked with said they appreciated having the extra time to eat lunch, saying it helped them to concentrate for the rest of the school day. At Woodland, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Citizens of this town got up and none of us decided to pay our taxes. What would happen to the city hall, city council, and the whole city itself? If we all stand together and refuse to pay taxes here, what happens to your jobs? It's us who put you in there, it's us who can take you out.
LaBounty Manufacturing of Two Harbors has just been awarded the biggest contract in its history, $1.6 million to make giant metal cutting shears to dismantle old Soviet nuclear submarines.
And basically it acts like a giant pair of scissors. You've got your cutting blades here, you've got a hydraulic cylinder inside the body of the shear, and when the hydraulic circuit's activated, the jaw comes down and makes its cut. So
the new shears will cut steel plating 2.5 inches thick. Similar shears are used to cut up surplus airplanes, ships, and on train cars after a wreck. Just like the grabbing tools and power hammers LaBounty usually makes, the new shears will fit on the end of Caterpillar excavators. And the business doesn't stop there. LaBounty is selling equipment in Australia, Europe, and the Far East, in part because of stricter environmental laws.
when you're torching, a lot of, if there's lead-based paint or any of that type of material that's painted over the steel, that gets into the atmosphere. The workers are exposed to that type of material.
The $1.6 million contract caps off one of the best years in LaBounty's history.
The original contract was the largest order we've ever received here, so it's a nice order, a substantial order, and we're looking for future business from it too.
Managers say the company is busier than ever with $24 million in sales, but the new orders will mean a stable business into the future.
The scrap business for us is a real big part of our business, and that's really taken off this year, and also the demolition end of our business has also had a high. So we're able to see both sides of the business really take off at one time, so it's really affected us.
In Two Harbors, Derek Hines, News 6. In Two Harbors, Minnesota, Derek Hines for NBC News. In Two Harbors, Derek Hines, KARE 11 News.
Sir, thank you all. What a pleasure that you over there. Thank you.
Entire community, thank you. Any more important than anyone else's. And these two people didn't stop and say, is it Irv Goldfein? If it is, we'll help them. If it's not, we won't. They just took action. They saw someone was in need, and it was a human life, and it was somebody that they knew how to help, and they did that.
A certificate of recognition and thank you for your extraordinary bravery. Thank you for your graduation. I'd like to present this to you.
Item 74,
everybody to disconnect. It is now several years later, the MPCA, the WLSSD, the Citizens Task Force, and others are asking that we get these downtown buildings disconnected.
With these questions I think you have, President Talarico, just to make sure everybody's clear.
Allowing for some continuity from season to season, and then obviously an answer to this.
Wait for an answer. You don't have the answer. Maybe you can give it to me.
I think it's wise for the administration to study the I&I task force findings and make some new recommendations to the City Council for our review. I think that's the process of the government that will set up in front of us. Let the administration do their day-by-day activities of the city. I think it's a premature resolution, and I will not support it also.
It's a sale, sale, sale. Merchants are wrapping up the holiday shopping season and kissing their inventory goodbye. With markdowns of 20 to 50 to 70% off, shoppers are flocking to Northland stores so they won't miss out on the big sale.
Hectic. It's been crazy. I mean, right from the time the gate opened this morning.
Some merchants were in at the crack of dawn, putting out the sales racks and preparing for the crowd.
A lot busier than I expected. A lot of returns, but a lot of good sales too.
Getting in on the good sales comes with a price, fighting the crowds of people. But some experienced shoppers say it's a breeze if you come in with a game plan and stick to it.
And we had a plan, so, you know, we went right to our plan and we haven't deviated, so we're right on schedule.
As fast as their fingers can type, clerks are ringing up new purchases and shoppers are exchanging those gifts that just wouldn't fit.
Well, actually, I had got a pair of pants for my parents for Christmas and I had to come return them because they didn't fit me. I'm growing a little bit too much, so.
But have no fear if you didn't get that perfect gift this Christmas. There's still plenty of time to treat yourself to plenty of sales, sales, sales. In Duluth, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
Chunk out of there. Good luck. Many families throughout the state and throughout the country really have been suffering, and there's a lot of dysfunction out there. We have a lot of problems with troubled youth, and young people here are empowered, and we're going to build a family conference center here so we can more adequately deal with the problems of youth and families today. Accessibility, and we'll be able to work more significantly and more. Chisholm House, Lakers, IDT.
This was the scene along the side of the road this afternoon as feds took over the fields outside the airport, searching for any clue as to how a whole bag full of payroll checks and financial papers ended up here. Mike Cubes found it on the road. He turned the mail over to the police last night. They, in turn, handed it over to federal agents. Estimated to contain some $2 million in payroll for postal employees in Tennessee, it's quite the mystery how it ended up here.
Well, it's going to be transported by truck and by plane, and somewhere in the transportation system it got out of the system.
Investigators aren't ruling out anything, including the possibility the package literally fell from the sky. It was found just past the end of a runway. More postal debris was found here today.
It doesn't necessarily relate to any loss of mail.
At a regional Twin Cities mail center, we found the bag this afternoon, its contents since shipped. Investigators say the red and white tags evidence the post office did get it to the plane. They're still trying to figure out where it went from there. They think it's the only bag missing.
We've got a strong feeling that this is the only one, but
assuming that you'd be hearing from people who didn't get their checks.
The phone should have been ringing this morning if there were more. Let me put it that way.
So the mail made it. A great day for the post office. It could have been much worse because the loss of the mail is one thing, but the loss of their checks may be more than they could bear.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lunch in downtown Duluth means for many a trip to Herbert's and Gerbert's. The now 2-year-old sandwich shop with the strange name has taken off, much to the delight of its owners.
It's always my Herbert or Gerbert or...
Actually, he is John Faegre, part owner of the downtown store that has seen a growth rate of an amazing 30% in the past year. John and partner Tom Grayhack, who runs the shop in Fargo, attribute their success to a good product, good employees, and the fact that
we deliver. The delivery is 40% of our business, so we do a great business even being downtown. We're running up to the campuses, to the hospitals till 2 in the morning.
Herbert's and Gerbert's is a franchise started in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. 8 stores are now up around the Midwest, and the company's founder Kevin Shipper's plans continued growth in 1995. The name Herbert's and Gerbert's comes from childhood stories Shipper's father used to tell. Now, besides the business itself, each sandwich they serve has a bizarre name and story to go with it. The fascinating tales cover the walls of every Herbert's and Gerbert's, providing interesting reading and a unique atmosphere that has lent to the company's success. In fact, Faegre has plans to open a store in the Twin Cities this summer and another Duluth location after that.
It's a dream come true. I've always wanted to own my own business.
Ted Rowlands.
Firefighters say someone was heating pipes in one of the units in a row of newly built condominiums at the Bluefin Bay Resort when a fire broke out and began creeping up the wall.
Because it started out in one unit and look what's got now.
Fire has destroyed 5 condominiums filled with winter vacationers. Noticing smoke pouring out of one of the units, housekeepers at the resort quickly took action.
We just started yelling back and forth, where's the keys? Where's the keys for the B-side? And we started running unit to unit, knocking on the doors and telling people to get out, and kids started running and, you know, grabbing their coats and hats and everything, and we just started running up and down the stairs.
Firefighters say the bitter cold temps and a strong lake wind are only making this fire more difficult to contain.
Well, the bad part of it is the wind's coming off the lake and it's blowing towards us, and we could, you know, normally you fight with the wind, so you fight with the wind going the opposite direction you want the fire to, you know, so you can fight the fire, but we can't get at it because the wind's blowing in our face, so it's pushing the fire towards us all the time.
The real shock came when we seen the roof go up and trying to set everything up. You could tell right there that it was going to be a bad one.
Fire crews from Tofte, Schroeder, and Lutsen have spent the afternoon trying to contain the blaze. They're still on the scene, and there's no estimate of dollar loss at this time. In Tofty, Gina Katzmark, News 6. In Tofty, Gina Katzmark, KARE 11 News.